Level 1. The Spectator. You're 15 years old and you're standing behind a chain-link fence at the edge of an industrial park at 11 at night. And the sound reaches you before anything else does. A rising snarl that seems to come from everywhere at once, and then two cars are gone past you in under 3 seconds, headlights and taillights smeared into two long red and white lines. And the crowd around you, maybe 60 people, erupts, and money changes hands, and somebody's cousin drove you here because you begged for 2 weeks. You don't own a car, you don't have a license yet. What you have is a phone full of videos you've watched so many times you can recite the commentary, and a specific, physical understanding that something is happening here that the rest of your life doesn't contain. You learn the vocabulary before you learn to drive. Quarter mile, roll race, spool, a 60-foot time, the difference between a burnout for tires and a burnout for show. You learn which cars run which numbers, that a stock car can trap 100 miles an hour through the lights and a built one can trap 140, that the number on the dial doesn't matter as much as who's willing to put their name on the line behind it. You go back the next week, and the week after that, you start recognizing faces. The guy with the turbocharged Nissan who never talks, the two brothers who run a small block V8 in a car that used to be somebody's grandmother's. The girl everyone calls 6-Second Sam because that's what her car ran the first time anyone timed it, and the name just stuck. Nobody explains the rules to you. You absorb them by watching what happens to people who break them. Somebody jumps the light and gets called out in front of everyone, and it's worse than losing. You understand slowly that this isn't chaos. It has a structure, unwritten, brutal, and completely consistent. You start saving money from a part-time job stacking shelves, not toward a car yet, toward being able to say yes when the moment to buy one arrives, because you've already learned that hesitation costs you the good ones. Level 2. The first car. You're 17, and the car is a 2001 Honda Civic SI with 190,000 kilometers, bought for €2,200 from a listing that had been up for 3 weeks because nobody wanted a car with a cracked bumper and a check engine light. You clear the code yourself after watching 4 videos. An oxygen sensor, €40, done in an afternoon. The car is not fast, you know this. You drive it to the industrial park anyway on a Friday night. Part to the edge, not racing, just present. Because showing up in something is the entry fee to being taken seriously later. A man named Denise, who's been coming to these nights for 11 years, walks over, looks at the Civic for a long moment, and asks if you've done anything to it. You say no. He tells you that's the right answer at this stage, that the biggest mistake beginners make is spending money on parts before they understand what the car actually needs, chasing horsepower numbers before fixing suspension geometry, adding a turbo before the transmission behind it can survive one. You listen. You spend the next year doing the unglamorous things. You replace bushings that are 20 years old. You get an alignment. You learn what the car does at 80 kilometers an hour on a rough surface before you even think about what it does at 180. Your first actual race is not a race, not really. A roll from 60 against a similarly tired Volkswagen, and you lose by 4 car lengths. And it feels like the best thing that has happened to you all year, because you were there, in the car, at the line, and the fear you expected to feel didn't arrive. You go home and can't sleep. You start reading everything you can find about the specific platform you own. Forums that are 15 years old, threads written by people who've since disappeared from the internet, and you begin to understand your car the way a mechanic understands an engine and a driver understands a road, which is to say, completely and from the inside. Level 3. The Builder. You're 20, and the Civic has become a different car without ever leaving your possession. Over 3 years, you've replaced the engine internals with forged pistons rated for the boost you're planning, added a turbocharger sized correctly for the power band you actually want rather than the biggest number available, upgraded the fuel system, the clutch, the axles, in that order because Denise explained early on that power without the supporting parts behind it just breaks things faster and more expensively. You've spent €9,000 over 3 years. Most of it earned working weekends at a tire shop where the owner, a retired racer himself, lets you use the lift after hours in exchange for sweeping up. The car now makes 310 horsepower at the wheels on a dyno you trust, a number with a printout behind it, not a guess. You run your first real quarter mile at a sanctioned test and tune night at a track 2 hours away. Legal, timed, official, because Denise insists that street numbers mean nothing until you've proven the car at a track where the surface is consistent and the timing is real. Your first pass, you short shift out of nervousness and run a 13.9. Your third pass of the night, settled in, you run a 12.6. You understand now that driving a fast car well is a completely separate skill from building one. That launching without spinning the tires, shifting at exactly the right moment, staying loose through the traps, all of it has to be practiced the way anything else is practiced. You start going to test and tune nights every month instead of only street nights, and you notice the culture there is different, quieter, more technical, less about spectacle and more about the number on the slip. You bring that discipline back to the street with you. Your reputation starts to change from the kid with the built Civic to a name people mention when they're trying to figure out who's actually fast this year, as opposed to who just talks like they are. Level 4, the name on the list. You're 23, and there's a list now, informal, unofficial, existing mostly in group chats in the memory of maybe 40 people, ranking who in the scene can actually be counted on to run what they claim. You're on it. Not at the top, but on it, which took 3 years of showing up, running honestly, and never once backing out of a race you called. The Civic is gone, sold for €5,500 to a 19-year-old who reminds you painfully of yourself 6 years earlier, and in its place is a 1998 Nissan Silvia S15, imported specifically because the platform has a ceiling the Civic never had. You build it with everything you've learned. A larger single turbo, a built 6-speed, a proper roll bar because you've reached a power level where the sanctioning bodies at legal events require one above 11 seconds, and you're running low 11s now. You start traveling to race other cities, not tourism, purpose, because the scene in your own city has limits and growth means finding people who can actually push you. You lose more than you win in the first year of traveling, humbling losses to cars and drivers who've been doing this at a level you didn't know existed. A 2JZ swapped chassis running high 9s out of a city 6 hours away. A driver who launches with a consistency that looks less like skill than something closer to instinct built over a decade. You take the losses the way Denise taught you to, as information, not humiliation. You adjust your launch, your shift points, your tire pressure, your mental approach to the 2 seconds before the light drops. You start winning more. You develop a reputation for being honest about your car's actual number, never sandbagging, never overselling, which matters more in this world than most outsiders would ever guess, because in a scene with no referees, your word is the only enforcement mechanism that exists. Level 5, the respected racer. You're 26 and people you've never met know your name before you introduce yourself. Not famous, not by any measure the outside world would recognize, but known, in the specific way that matters inside a community built on reputation instead of records. The Silvia runs a 9.8 now, single turbo, methanol injection, a transmission you've rebuilt twice because you keep finding the edge of what it can survive. You've become someone new racers ask to look at their cars before a big purchase, the way Denise once looked at yours. And you find yourself repeating his exact sentences without meaning to. Don't chase the number before the fundamentals. The biggest mistake is impatience. And you understand now that this is how the knowledge actually moves through a scene that has no schools and no certifications, one racer passing down what they learned the expensive way to whoever's paying attention. You start organizing test and tune nights yourself, coordinating with a track 2 hours out that gives your group discounted rental time on slow Tuesday evenings, because you've watched 3 people get hurt on public roads over the years, and you understand, finally, in your bones rather than just your head, that the number on the time slip matters less than where you earned it. Some of the old street crowd calls you soft for this. You don't care. You've been to a funeral for a 19-year-old who ran out of road on a public street, doing what you used to do without a second thought. And something in you closed that door permanently the week after. You still love speed. You've just relocated where you chase it. Level 6, the professional privateer. You're 30, and racing has become something closer to a second income than a hobby with expenses. You've built a small sponsorship relationship with a local performance shop, not enough to live on, enough to cover parts and entry fees and the diesel to tow the trailer to regional events. You've stopped racing on public streets entirely, both because the legal exposure at your income level would be catastrophic and because you've simply outgrown what a street environment can teach you. Sanctioned drag radial competition is where you compete now, a category with real structure, real classes, real record boards. And you've built a dedicated car for it, a twin-turbo small-block chassis that runs consistent 8.7s on a class-legal tire, a number that took 2 years of chassis tuning to find and required you to learn things about weight transfer and traction that no street environment could ever have taught you, because the street doesn't reward that kind of precision, it rewards bravery. And this new world rewards something closer to engineering. You place third at a regional points event with 200 competitors, your best finish yet. And the trophy sits on a shelf next to a photo of the Civic from 12 years ago with the cracked bumper, and the distance between those two objects is the entire story of how you got here. You mentor 2 younger drivers now, formally through the shop, teaching them the same fundamentals in the same order Denise taught you: suspension before power, discipline before ego, honesty before reputation. Because you've come to believe the order matters as much as the content. Level 7, the record holder. You're 34 and your name is on a regional record board, quickest in your class at your home track, a .831 at 168 miles an hour that took 4 years of incremental changes to reach, a new converter, a revised suspension geometry, an engine management change that took 3 months of dyno time to dial correctly. Other drivers study your setup the way you once studied Denise's, and you find that being studied requires a different kind of honesty than being unknown ever did, because now your mistakes get noticed and repeated by people trying to learn from you. So you're careful to explain not just what worked, but what didn't. The 2 engines you destroyed finding the actual limit of the platform, the 18 months you spent chasing a wheel hop problem that turned out to be a €200 bushing. You've become part of the sport's institutional memory in your region. Someone event organizers call when they're setting up new class rules, because you've competed long enough to know which regulations prevent problems and which ones just create paperwork. The record won't last forever, you know this. Someone younger, hungrier, with a platform you haven't considered will eventually find the half-tenth you can't. And you find that you're not afraid of this the way you might have been at 23. You've started to understand that holding a record is a custodianship, not a possession. The same way owning one of the rare old machines the collectors talk about is a custodianship, and that your job while you have it is to have earned it honestly and to hand it over eventually to someone who did the same. Level 8. The builder of racers. You're 39, and you no longer drive competitively as your primary role, though you still do it. Still love it, still feel the same 2 seconds of pre-light silence you felt at 17 behind a wheel of a car with a cracked bumper. What's changed is that you now own the shop, the same one that sponsored you a decade ago, bought from its retiring founder with savings and a loan and a level of financial fear that dwarfed anything you ever felt at a starting line. You build cars for other people now, careful, honest builds. Cars that make exactly the number you tell the customer they'll make, because you learned early that the scene runs on the same currency it always has: reputation. And yours is the whole business now. A car you built for a client, a young woman with the same hunger you remember having, runs a 7.9 at a national event and wins her class. And the win is credited to her, correctly. But you stand at the edge of the return road afterward and feel something close to what you felt watching your own first honest quarter-mile pass. Except this time, it isn't your car, and it isn't your name on the slip. And you discover that this version of the feeling might actually be better, quieter, less selfish, more durable. You've trained 4 mechanics who've gone on to open their own shops. You keep in touch with most of them. The scene is smaller now, in some ways, more regulated, more expensive to compete in seriously, and larger in others, more organized, safer, more visible to people who'd have dismissed it as reckless kids 20 years ago. And you've come to understand that you were part of the generation that changed which of those things it became. Level 9, the legend. You're 48, and a magazine that covers the drag radial scene runs a feature on you. 3 pages, photos of the Sylvia from the archive next to the current shop car. And the rider asks you what changed between the industrial park at 15 and now, and you find yourself talking for 20 minutes without meaning to. You still go to test and tune nights, not to compete seriously anymore, but because the sound and the smell and the specific tension of the staging lanes are things you never stopped needing. And there's a particular satisfaction in being the oldest person in the lanes and still being fast enough that nobody assumes you're there for nostalgia. Denise is 71 now and still shows up some Tuesdays, and you two stand at the fence the way you once stood there as strangers, and neither of you says much, because you both understand what the silence between two people who've spent 30 years chasing the same 2 seconds actually contains. Your shop has built cars that hold records in 3 states. 2 of the mechanics you trained now run shops of their own that you're quietly proud of, in a way you don't advertise. Somewhere right now, a 15-year-old is standing behind a chain-link fence at the edge of an industrial park at 11 at night, watching 2 cars disappear into a blur of red and white light, feeling something they don't have words for yet. Saving money from a job they hate toward a car they haven't found. They don't know yet that the number on the time slip will end up mattering less than who taught them to read it honestly. They'll find that out the way everyone in this does, the slow way, 1/4 mile at a time.